definitely right about that. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Like the Deputy Mayor, I'm not going to repeat what the other councillors have said, but I was very interested in Councillor Clo's alternative. And I think the key thing for me, and this is what I was getting my head around, is do we have 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, or do we have 2.5, 3.2, 3.5? I understand around the percentage when we end up comparing yours, Your Worship, with Councillor Clo. But I have to say that 2.5, 3.2, 3.5 over the 3 years for our transport package is the one that I will be supporting. I think in regards to an increment over the 3 years, I think it would be more palatable, and I've used that word, but it would be more palatable for our community at 2.5, 3.2, 3.5. Both obviously end up in the third year at 3.5, but looking at this, I will be supporting your one, Your Worship, and I have to say that there are two projects within my ward at Manukau that I know that the local boards will be happy with, and that is both the transport hubs. One at Otahuhu, and I remember your first visit to the late Graham Mullins in 2010, when you first came out there, Your Worship, and we had a look at the railway station, but the connectivity from the railway station through to Otahuhu shopping, the business streets there. And so, Your Worship, that one there, but also in the in Otara Papatoetoe with the Manukau one as well. So, Your Worship, and I do have a lot in regards to the alternative, but for me, 2.5, 3.2, 3.5, so I will be supporting the transport levy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne, welcome back from overseas.
Great to be back.
Timely arrival.
No, we don't.
Very timely.
We don't need
Right.
Perfect timing.
Right. Look, Councillor Arthur, just to finish.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I was Joe Bloggs in the streets, I'd be getting quite confused when we're talking about the billions of dollars, millions of dollars, and these percentages. And I've sat here and thought, well, how do I get the message so that the average man in the street understands what we're talking about here? First of all, the increases we're talking about is not applied to the value of their property, it's applied to last year's rates. And so if the average rate was 2,200, if I took the midpoint between Councillor Clo and yourself, it would be 10.2%. That would equal $224.40 per year, which is $4.31 a week, 62 cents per day, equaling 1 cup of coffee per household that pays rates. Now, and this is what, if the public understood it along those lines, are they prepared to forego a cup of coffee per week to get all the services that we're planning for Auckland? Or do we want to cut back on the services that we provide for the people of the city that we represent? We have serious transport problems, and we're finding solutions to it while we wait for the government outcome. So my final comment to you, Your Worship, is for the people of Auckland, for a cup of coffee a week, you get all the services that you want. Thank you.
Okay, councillors. Well, I mean, we've had a discussion here for the last 2.5 hours. We've got a recommendation and 2 amendments. What I would propose to do is put Councillor Quacks's amendment.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, before you do that, I'd like to write a reply.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Then I'll put Councillor Clo's amendment, and on the basis that neither of those were carried, then I would put the substantive.
Mr. Mayor, could I speak to my own?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be brief. I find myself agreeing with all the speakers in a way around the room that the truth of this matter is very broad, and we do face major transport challenges in Auckland, and we have to improve them. Our task is not helped by our seeming advocacy of more and more growth. You know, we are playing a game we can't win. The notion of sustainability went out the window some time ago, growth is good. Well, this is the other side of growth, a game that's costing more and more to keep up with and possibly cannot be won. However, we have to try, we have to give it a crack. In terms of your resolution, Mr Mayor, I want to be assured that it's legally accurate. We're dealing with ratepayers' money, we're dealing with a 3 billion plus, or 39 billion budget here over 10 years, and I think the use of the word levy is not accurate. I've taken it up with a manager and he said it's to do with marketing it. Well, when it comes to this scale of budget, and when it comes to ratepayers' money, we have to be quite clinical and precise about what we're doing, bearing in mind the Auditor General came to see us late last year and said she's reviewing the budget, and so she should. It is so huge. So I would suggest that levy is quite legally separate from a tax or a rate, and a rate is of course is a property tax, and I would ask you to have that checked before we resolve it, in order to ensure that we are accurate about this. In my definition, in terms of the Rating Act, this seems to be more like a UAGC. It is regressive, and I'm hearing what Councillor Clow is saying about how unfairly this impacts on householders who are already under pressure compared to business. And he's made it a very important distinction between small businesses, the corner dairy, and big businesses, you know, such as ANZ Bank, which had a record profit, and Westpac, and Precinct Properties, and the Property Council, and all the rest of them. They're getting a subsidy from this, and transport will benefit them more than anyone else, actually. So I make that point. I did hear members talking about bravery and courage, and I'm always sceptical about this sort of stuff. I can remember previous brave and courageous politicians long before the Super City was even dreamt of, and I think of my colleague Gwen Ball with her big rates increase in 2003, which was designed to fix transport.
Oh, yeah.
And Mayor Dick Hubbard's congestion busting rates increase. Those rates increases didn't go down well with the public, probably because the public felt that they weren't going to solve the problems, and indeed they didn't really, they were overhyped. So in terms of marketing, people be careful you don't overpromise about this. And also, when you talk about people putting their hands in their pocket and putting skin in the game, hey, they're already doing that,
yes,
big time. And I think we need to respect that. Now, my amendment really is looking at the other side of the ledger to ensure we're getting best value from our spend. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. The information I've circulated to councillors this morning is the first time you've ever seen this particular information, and I noticed there is another report from Auckland Transport, and I would invite you to compare the two and give this some thought. And that's what my amendment is about, that the Budget Committee note the significantly higher rail operating costs for Wellington, and that's a net of $66 million last year, compared to Wellington, and request the Chief Executive to work with Auckland Transport and report back on options for potential savings in these costs as part of developing the 2016-2017 annual plan. In terms of the so-called levy, when I was first briefed on it, I was told it was going to be $20 per ratepayer, and I don't think anyone would quibble about this. Now that it's gone up, and I take Councillor Quack's point about a temporary, no such thing, or nothing more permanent than a temporary tax, these taxes tend to balloon up very, very quickly in my experience, and that is something to bear in mind. But given that light rail is now a serious option, given light rail, on the face of it, is very popular with the people of Auckland, our funding challenges are actually greater than we previously considered. Therefore, Mr Mayor, I urge, if the resolution passes, and hopefully it's Councillor Clowe's resolution that wins the day, if the resolution is passed, it should not be treated as, you know, business as usual, a bid here for road sealing, a bid here for whatever. This needs to be in a dedicated account to make a measurable improvement to Auckland transportation. Thank you very much.
Very good. Right, Councillor Dick.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and sometimes I feel like the cowardly lion from the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, the mayor's name.
'Cause I must lack courage and bravery when I've asked for the ratepayers to be taken into consideration, because we consulted on a 3.5% increase on the rates. We finally agreed that we'd come down to 2.5, but at the last minute, and as Councillor Wood has indicated, at the last minute, we were given something totally different. And now the rates are well above the 2.5 in some cases. And I understand the desire of some people to support this, because I note that while the rates in the awards were going down before, they now have a very small increase. Not so in my ward, and I make absolutely no apology for supporting those people in my ward who thought that they were consulted on a voluntary exchange.
That's right.
And now they're being hit with a coercive tax. And that is not fair. It's not what we consulted on. And just like Councillor Lee has just pointed out, we've got to be careful about not overselling this, because we're talking around this place now. The number of people who have spoken in support of the mayor's proposal, the mayor's recommendation, as though we're going to achieve transport nirvana in a very short period of time by this levy. Nothing could be further from the truth. And as it was pointed out to us by the Independent Advisory Board, that even with the tolls and even with the petrol tax, the savings in the first 20 years would be minuscule. And yet, we're now acting as though we are going into transport nirvana. Everything will be happy. We are going to, the only people, of course, who won't be happy are the people who will consider that they have been duped, and I make no apology for using that term, duped through the consultation process, where they thought they were buying one thing and have been sold something else. And councillors, I make no apology for asking this organisation to find a 2% saving within their $3 billion OPEX
Easy.
spend. I make no apology for that. And I think if you have the ratepayers at heart, and And if you do have some courage, I would urge you to vote for my amendment. Thank you.